All right, so mechanical safety. Don't go splat. We don't want you to fall down or anything like that. Mobile safety, so that's in your vehicle. Mobile installations, secure all the equipment. Don't have the radio on the back shelf under the rear window, loose, sitting there waiting for you to hit something and have it come fly through your head. Don't do that. Place equipment where you can operate it safely while driving. The radios that I was saying that Dave and I have 5 apiece of, the front comes off. You can mount the big box anywhere you want and just have that little piece up there, and it's just real easy to mount it.
And next time we take a break, if you guys want to see how that functions, let us know.
Yeah, because I've got one in my truck. And is that what you got, mobile?
Yep.
Yeah. Installing antennas. It's yellow, so it's on the test. Or it could be on yours. Watch for and stay clear of any overhead electrical lines. So you got this big metal pole called an antenna mast with a big metal thing on the top called an antenna, and you're standing it up under the power line that comes from the street. Don't do that. You will learn not what an RF burn is, you will learn what electrocution is.
That's really basic stuff, but you still hear about hams you get fried by this.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
It happens to people who work on the boom trucks, for trimming trees and things. One of the rules that we have, and we're going to cover it, is don't put up a mast where the power line's here, and if it falls, it can hit it, because that's going to happen while you're there messing with it. That's when it's going to happen. It's not going to fall down just sitting there. So, all right, watch for and stay clear. At least 150% of the height of the antenna system from the nearest power line. So if your antenna is 100 feet tall, you're going to be very, very popular with the ham radio operators, for one thing. If it's 100 feet tall, the nearest power line needs to be 150 feet away so it can't hit it. Just watch for and stay clear of any overhead electrical lines. The minimum safe distance from a power line is far enough that if the antenna falls, no part of it can come closer than 10 feet to the power lines.
And this is in yellow.
Both of those are. Okay? The 150% part's white. The part they want to know is 10 feet. It can't come within 10 feet. Example, a 40-foot tower or mast with a 10-foot antenna should be at least 75 feet from power lines. So because it's going to be 50 feet tall with the mast and the antenna, so add 50%. But it's not yellow. It's the 10 feet is the part that's going to be on your test. If a tower were to fall, no part of the tower should come closer to the power lines than 10 feet. That's the same thing we just said in the last slide. Same question. Probably because one of them's on the tech and one's on the general, so it shows up twice. We'll find out when we get to the questions. Never run feed lines over or under power lines, because if the power line drops and it's below it, potential for you to send power straight into your radios in your shack in the house while you're holding it.
The radios do not bounce well.
Yeah, they also don't insulate you very well. Even though the handset's plastic, that much power can jump right through that plastic. Towers should use proper grounding techniques, separate ground rods for each leg, like we've talked last week. Each leg's got a separate ground rod, and they're all tied together. Bonded together into the tower. Make certain that people cannot come in contact with the antenna after installation. So if it's in your backyard and it's fenced, is that good enough? I bet you the lawyers would say no. But if it's 10 feet off the ground in a backyard and you've got a fenced yard, you're probably good to go with that. Okay, the whole idea is that if you got little kids running around, you don't want to have an antenna sitting on the ground. And there are some pretty low antennas that will do a lot of stuff.
And there are some really, really unaware, I won't use the word stupid, unaware people out there that think they're radio people.
They're the ones we write those warning labels for.
No kidding.
Warning, do not use the blow dryer in the shower. Okay. Put the fence around ground-mounted antennas. Follow the manufacturer's instructions during installation. Just, common sense stuff. Tower climbing. Who wants to climb a tower? Especially after that story you told. Can't turn the power off? Do not go up a tower if they can't turn the power off. Tower climbing. So we got a vest there, or a harness. Use the appropriate safety equipment. Sufficient training on tower climbing. That doesn't mean you got a 5-minute class from your buddy who wants you to climb the tower because he's too old. Okay? It means you've gotten enough classes, you know what you're doing. There's a picture of me climbing a tower in here, and trust me, it wasn't very tall, and it was painful by the time I got the job done of just putting up a single little antenna for the field because I wanted to climb a tower. And it was like, 15, 20 feet? Bottoms of my feet were hurting from standing on those little metal rods. So know what you're Somebody's shaking their head. You're the radio guy. You've done that apparently. Okay, use an appropriate tie-off at all times, so you don't want to fall and go all the way to the ground before you get stopped. And you don't want to fall and hit the end of the wrong kind of rope with the wrong kind of harness, because it's going to be a sudden jerk and it'll break your back or your neck. You want the right equipment, so you need to know what you're doing. Wear an approved climbing harness at all times, so that's one right there. And confirm that it is rated for the weight of the climber and that it is within its allowable service life. And you notice it, well, yeah, there's a big hook on the left-hand side there. That's so you can hook equipment to it. It's not just the weight of the climber. It's all the other garbage you're hauling up there with you, okay? If it's clipped onto you or the harness. And notice that those are all yellow. Approved climbing harness all the time, and make sure it's rated, okay? And it's within its service life, because they have a service life. You need to have a safety helmet. I'm not sure why on that. The guys on the ground need hard hats.
Somebody else is on the tower.
What's that?
When you're on the ground,
Yes.
somebody else is on the tower.
But this is about climbing it. So if you're on the ground and there's a guy up there, have a hard hat or don't be near it. Because things will come down and they'll hit something and they'll fly out like that and they'll get you 20 feet away from it, okay, or more.
Heads up.
Yeah, and if you drop something and you're on the tower, don't go, look out! What? Okay? Because there'll be a monkey wrench coming down. You laugh, but it happens all the time. Wear safety goggles, boots or work shoes, gloves, because the metal can get hot and there's little sticky things and point pokies. Don't forget the sunscreen, because you're up there and getting irradiated by UV light from the sun, which is our friend, but the UV's not. Okay, comment.
Regarding the rope, if you have a rope that you're pulling with, make sure it's behind you, because they stretch when you fall. They don't just jerk you like the rope
Yeah.
at a blackbird or something. And it's also within the service life.
And you never step on them. Oh boy, you'll get whooped on if you step on a climbing rope.
Or just lay them out.
Generally, if you're doing tower work, you're not hauling a rope. If you're climbing, you're using a haul line, and you don't want to stretch in a haul line, but you're not using that to support yourself. You're clipped in with a big carabiner clip.
Yep.
And you should have two of them.
Yeah, but you're not supporting your weight with the rope.
All right. Handheld amateur or FRS radios for communications between climbers and ground crew, because even if you're only 40 feet up, 50 feet up, you got to yell to get down there if there's any kind of wind or anything, which if it's a lot of wind, you shouldn't be up there, but it makes it a lot easier to communicate. And it's not yellow. Never climb alone. It's just like scuba diving. Never climb alone, never dive alone. Okay, before climbing, remove power. Okay, what was that story you were telling us earlier? Remove power from all circuits feeding the tower or devices on the tower. Lockout, tagout. Who does not know what that is? And there better be some hands coming up. Only two. Show of hands, who doesn't know what lockout, tagout is? Keep them up where I can see, because I only see two. Somebody's lying. There's no way everybody knows. Lockout, tagout. Okay, if I turn off the switch, and then I go work on it over there, and somebody comes in and goes, oh, the lights are off. I got zapped. Lockout, tagout is where I turn it off at the power box, close it up, and I lock it with a lock that only I can open. And if there's 4 or 5 guys working in an area, they all put their locks on it, and you can't power it on until everybody who's been working on it comes back and takes all of their locks off. Then you can open it up and put the power on. Smart. Lockout, tagout. It will kill you in an industrial area if you're not the only one with the key. All right, move power. Lockout, tagout. Disconnect transmitters and feed lines. Actually physically take them loose, because you don't want that guy turning on the thing while you're up there. You'd rather he blows up his radio because there's no antenna on it. Inspect all guy wires and hardware. So if you're climbing, let's say it's an extreme case, a 1,000-foot tower, and you're climbing up there to fix something, you better have gone and checked all those guy wires that make sure it holds up straight, because it's used to supporting its weight, and now you're on the side of it and making it off kilter. It needs to be well supported and with good stuff. And crank up towers are all the way down. They go up and down for a reason, and if you're going to climb one, it better be cranked all the way down. And if it tips over, tip it over, don't climb it. Double check the climbing gear, belts, lanyards, and fasteners. I would suggest you have somebody else check it for you as well, in case you missed something. Inspect all ropes and pulleys. While climbing, slow down, speed kills, take your time. If it's an hour job, take an hour. Carabiners are completely closed. Belt latch hooks with opening away from the tower. The reason for that is as you're climbing up, you don't want to have that thing catch and yank you off because you're going up and suddenly you just got stopped and you weren't ready for it. Always use safety lanyard or redundant lanyards. So I don't know how you would climb with just one and be safe at all times. I just can't. Well, you can if you can take it from here and go to there over the piece.
There's still
But
that fraction of a moment where you are.
you are still unhooked, yes. So it's best to have two, especially if you're over 29 and a half. You start realizing you are not immortal. Gin pole. A gin pole is used for lifting the tower sections and antennas. That's how you get the antenna up to the top. That's how you build a tall tower. There's a thing called a gin pole that you bolt to the top. You use it to pull the next section up. You bolt it on the next section. Then you lift the gin pole up to the top and do it all over.
So a gin pole, just to explain, has a pulley at the top, and it extends beyond where you can reach, up to almost the height of the next section. So you fasten that to a tower length, and that gives you something to raise the next section up, and you can just slide that section over then, drop it in the top of the section you're on, and take the gin pole off, fasten that section down, and go up to the next one. So you can literally climb the assembly.
As you're making it.
Yep.
Yep, and we've got a picture one in here somewhere before on this. Must not be climbed unless retracted on a crank up tower. Okay, there's a cable in there that when you turn a crank, whether it's by hand or with a motor, it pulls on a cable and it pulls all the sections of the tower up. Well, it's a cable. What can cables do? At the most inopportune times, like when you're up on the top of the tower, break. And you get a ride down real fast, okay? Never climb them when they're cranked up unless they've got mechanical locks installed, and just crank it down. But you can get up there unless mechanical safety locking devices are installed. And that is a gin pole. It's bolted to the side. This is a crank up tower. It's also a tilt up, but because of the size of this antenna, you can't tilt it up after you put the antenna on. You have to put it upright and then get that antenna up there. So then the gin pole's there. You use that to lift this antenna. We're actually taking it down, I believe, here at this. No, I think we're putting it up. That's old me up there. That's how high I climbed to tell that I don't want to do it again. Okay? That's all it took. But it was fun. I could say I did it. Okay, so the tower is lowered. The safety harness is on. I don't know if you can see there with this screen, but I'm wearing the safety harness. I'm tied in. That's the gin pole. Hey, there we got a little arrow tells us. I have sufficient ground crew because there's one there and there and there and there and there and there. Oh, so there's like 5 of them down there. That was for a field day. We put that up and we operated around the world. Okay. Towers, masts, and hardware. So you want height with your antenna. So you're going to get a tower, or a mast is cheaper and easier, and you're going to need some hardware with it. Stainless steel hardware, galvanized hardware. Use anti-seize compound on your nuts and bolts because it's going to sit there hopefully for years and years and years, and at some point you're going to have to do maintenance. You don't.
Take it down. I moved.
Oh yeah, if you move.
A hand grade's easy going down.
Yeah, but most hams want to take their good, expensive equipment with them. They don't leave. They'll leave the 14 yards of concrete for their tower, but they'll take that tower and go pour 14 more yards. Cables should have UV-resistant jackets. Notice there's no yellow here. If burying cables, you were talking about your coax lines, your feed lines and power lines. You want to use conduit or PVC pipe and use a lot bigger diameter than what you need to run, because you'll end up running more cables. You will. You're going to go, hey, I can stick another antenna on there. Coaxial cable is designed for direct burial, so don't just take your standard cable and stick it in the dirt. Pipe mast. So this is a pipe mast. It's got little clamps, and you push up a section and you clamp it off. You push up the next section, you clamp it off. Up to 20 or 30 feet. They're bracketed to the side of a building. They're called push-up masts. They have push-up masts up to 50 feet. They must be guyed when they're that tall. Fold-over towers. So if you look right here, these three things, that one and that one, are pointing the same direction. You unbolt this one, and it leans over this way so that you can just drop it down on the ground. So that's a fold-over tower. And they have a bit of a height limitation. Okay, fixed towers. 8-foot or 10-foot sections. And they're lifted by the gin pull. So you buy a 100-foot tower, you're going to get 10-foot sections. You're probably going to get 9 plus a base section, maybe 8 and a base and a top. But you lift up each section by gin pull, and these little spots is what your feeties are going to be on while you're working on that thing. So you want good shoes, good boots. They can be over 200 feet tall. They normally have to be guyed.
Yeah, what does guide mean?
A guy is a rope support,
A cable.
often a cable
Oh, okay.
that
Like on
is
power lines.
anchored out away from the base of the tower.
Think of it as a bracing wire, so that it's 3 points on 3 different axes. That way you're always pulling on 2 when the wind blows, regardless of direction.
And if you have one set of 3 guys, any one of them breaks, it's coming down.
Yep.
So you want to put 2 sets of 3 guys, so that if one breaks, you got another one holding it until you can get up there and repair it.
At least a time period where you can fix it.
The one thing you don't want to do is be up there when it comes down. Okay, so it could be over 200 feet tall, normally must be guyed. Telescoping tower. So this one's really cool. This is a crank up type, and it just cranks up inside of each section's getting narrower, and these sections slide down until it's all the way to the ground. This big storm's coming, you lower it down, and that big old antenna just comes down with it. They can be more than 120 feet tall. And normally self-supporting, oh, there we go. Normally self-supporting, but they may be guyed, so 120 feet apparently. Or more than 120 feet. I wouldn't want one like that. That is a UV-resistant rope that is black or Dacron and polyester or nylon. Polypropylene, do not use. That's the stuff that you buy at Walmart that will rot in 1 season in the sun or less. And then down comes everything. That stuff there is actually available through Ham Radio Outlet, and I'm sure other places. It's fairly thick, but it works. Guidelines can loosen due to vibration. Here's the test. To prevent loosening, use a safety wire through any turnbuckles that are used to adjust the tension to the guidelines. So, safety wire through the turnbuckles.
So does everybody know what a turnbuckle is?
I was just going to say, does everybody know what safety wire is?
No.
Okay, safety wire is a stainless steel always, isn't it? It's a stainless steel wire. It's very thin, and we use it to secure nuts and bolts on things that are critical.
What it does is it gives you the opportunity to secure a nut with a piece of wire that goes to a stationary point so that nut cannot go loose. It does a good job, but it's really picky on how you use it.
So on the turnbuckles, typically it goes from one end that both ends can spin, but they spin in opposite directions. And so you put the wire between the 2 ends in a way that they can't unspin and loosen.
Makes an S-curve against the torque value.
Safety wire is an entire 8-hour class in basic aviation school. All right, questions. Which of the following is good practice when installing ground wires on a tower for lightning protection? I got a Charlie. Short and direct, okay.
Any other answers?
Don't we don't want to make them in a right angles? Okay. So we know we don't want to make them a right angle, so delta's out as well as Bravo. So it's Alpha or Charlie, and you don't put drip loops. So it is Charlie. All right, what is required when climbing an antenna tower? I heard an answer, but I didn't catch what. Delta? Yes, all of those. Under what circumstances is it safe to climb a tower without a helper or observer? That's the answer they want. Which of the following is an important safety precaution to observe when putting up an antenna tower? Got two Charlies. No disagreement? All right. Yeah, you don't want to insulate the base of the tower.
I like that.
You like that? Yeah. What is the purpose of a safety wire through a turnbuckle used to tension guy lines? Good thing we explained that, huh? Bravo. Prevent the turnbuckle from loosening. Now, where would we get the vibration from?
Wind?
Wind. The wind blowing along can make those things that you can actually hear them singing sometimes. What is the minimum safe distance from a power line to allow when installing an antenna? We covered this twice. 10 feet. The 1.5 thing, that was in white, and it's a distractor here.
1.5 is a good opportunity. It's something you need to be aware of, but 10 feet is the answer.
10 feet, yeah. So if it's a 1,000-foot tower, you better be 1,010 feet from the power line. Right? All right. Which of the following is an important safety rule to remember when using a crank-up tower?
Charlie.
Charlie, this type of tower must not be climbed unless retracted or mechanical safety-looking devices have been installed. Okay. If we didn't know that was the answer, how could we answer this correctly?
You don't care if it's painted?
You don't care if it's painted, so it can't be D, so Alpha and Delta are out. We left with Bravo and Charlie, okay. And you ground all towers, right? So it has to be Charlie. So you don't even have to know that answer, and you can get that one right. And it won't work on everything, because you might not have known that you didn't have to ground them.
Or painted?
Or paint it, right. But don't stress out on the test. It's.
I have a question.
Yes.
So what height do you have to be when you have to put a light on the top?
We'll get to that later. It is an FAA requirement, and it's based on distance from the airport and everything else.
And sometimes local.
And surrounding it.
Yeah, I don't think the locals can do anything. It's airspace. Okay, what is considered to be a proper grounding method for a tower?
Delta.
So the correct answer is Delta. You're going to use separate 8-foot long grounding rods, driving them 8 feet into the ground. They're 8 feet long, bonded to the tower and each other. And the trick to getting an 8-foot rod down in the ground 8 feet is called a sawzall. You drive it down with a fence post until you hit that first rock, and then you just cut it off so it looks like it's down there.
And then mash the top so it doesn't go.
And then hit it with. Who's laughing? That's how you do it. Which of these choices should be observed when climbing a tower using a safety harness? Because you're only going to climb with a safety harness.
Bravo.
Okay. I heard a Delta and I heard a Bravo. So let's go over Delta. All of these choices are correct. How correct would it be to hold onto the tower with one hand at all times?
You never did anything.
You could, but you don't. That harness, you actually turn loose of everything. You're standing there with your feet on it and leaning back. Makes you more stable. So Alpha's out, so that puts Delta out. So then what's left? Bravo. Rated for you.
You did say,
Ensure that all the minimums are secured.
I'm sorry?
you did say that Charlie was important.
Well, heavy tools you shouldn't have tied to you.
Exactly.
The heavy tools should come up on a line.
And be fastened to the tower.
And re-secure.
Yes.
Actually be secured while you're using them so they can only fall a couple feet. Okay, what should be done before climbing a tower that supports electrically powered devices?
Turn everything on.
Turn it all on? Okay, that's 3 demerits. I heard some numbers, or some letters, but I didn't hear what they were. Bravo, make sure all circuits that supply power to the tower are locked out and tagged. And whose lock do you use?
Yours.
And who's got the keys?
You.
Okay, the problem with that question is keys, plural, there's 1, and it's in your pocket. Okay, it's bravo. All right, installing towers and antennas, things to review and remember. It could save your life. Make sure only one person is giving directions while installing or raising an antenna or tower. It's that guy, okay? He's the only one anybody should be listening to. I used to drive forklift and I'd have people running around and some of them were extendable boom forklifts, using them like cranes. One guy gives the directions and this guy's over here going, oh, you're almost there, come here. I don't care. That guy's in charge.
Everybody giving that guy information, because he's the one really.
He's the only one that, yeah, so one guy is in charge. Always have at least one person as your safety backup. None of this is yellow. Understand the directions and read them on every installation. So when you buy your own tower, woohoo! Don't get so excited and in a rush that you do like the typical guy and throw away the instructions. Read the instructions, because if you forget a step, it could all come down. Assume you know everything. Never assume you know everything, as that kind of thinking leads to injury or death.
If you've never thought about it this way, think about it the way the manufacturer wrote those instructions. They want their product to look good and work right. They've already made all the mistakes you can make, hopefully.
And they don't want your widow suing them.
Right. So there's some good value in those instructions.
Okay. Ensure you have all the tools, equipment, and safety gear that are required to do the job properly. So, who knows what a crescent wrench is? An adjustable spanner. That is not a hammer. It doesn't matter if it works quite well as one, it is not. If you need a hammer or a mallet, have the hammer or mallet. Okay, do not make do with wrong tools or gear. So, let's see, I'm the only Marine, right? So we should be okay. Do not wear loose clothing. Do not exceed the weight limitations of a tower as specified by the manufacturer. And that includes antennas and mounts, your safety gear, your tools, everything. So there's 3 guys going up a big tower. What's all their weight? And all the tools are going to haul up behind them too. Will that thing support it? Inspect safety equipment and tools, helmets, harnesses, safety lanyards, tools, radios, everything prior to using them. Before you start climbing, you don't want to be halfway up the tower and go, oh, I should have put batteries in my radio.
And please note, while all of this is really good information, there's no yellow.
Yeah, there's no yellows. We're going pretty quick because there's no yellow. Ensure all equipment and tools are serviceable. Any defects in the equipment or tools, wear, cracks, etc., require that it be taken out of service and replaced. Okay, you just don't make do when you're on a tower. It's an extreme environment. This is not an area to be frugal. Well, life depends on it. Could be more than just yours, but it could be yours. Or it could be the guy down below when the handle of your tool breaks and it's falling 100 feet down onto his crash helmet, which is not going to do him any good with a 5-pound piece of metal coming down 100 feet. Communicate. Be clear and concise. Check the weather forecast and monitor it throughout the entire installation, because the wind can come up, lightning storms can come up, depending on where you are, lightning storms can just pop up. Rain, snow or ice. Try climbing down a metal tower when it's frozen and it's got ice on it.
Why would you be climbing down?
What? Why would you be climbing up?
Why would you be climbing down? You have to be going up.
You could go up and then it shows up. It can happen. It can happen. So there are environments where it's extremely cold out, and when the moist air comes in, like a fog bank comes through because of the weather pattern, that suddenly you've got fog freezing onto the metal. And you're up on the top of the tower, and it becomes, it's not going to happen with the little short guys, right? But this kind of problems, they're all problems, but if you're on a short tower, you can get down real quick as soon as you see a problem. But if you're a 1,000-foot tower, okay, It takes a long time to get down.
Even a 60 to 80 foot tower, the wind speed will be significantly higher than it is at the ground. If you've got a 10 to 15 mile an hour wind on the ground, you can have a 30, 35 mile an hour wind at 65 feet. And that significantly affects your effectiveness up on the tower. Just using tools in a 35 mile an hour wind gets to be more of a challenge.
Okay, any of those things can ruin your day or your life. And if you're going to climb a tower and you got a wife and kids, make sure you got life insurance. Well, lots of it. Okay, any questions?